Hello there, BookTube. My name is Nathan, and I'm the Rambling Reviewer. I call myself that because, well, I tend to ramble in these videos, and well, I sometimes tend to review things. And I've had an exciting day today. Uh, I went to do um, a family photo with my mother and my brother, and afterwards we went to a Mediterranean restaurant, which I've never been to, which is very good. They had a vegan shawarma, which is very, very yummy. And they had a vegan platter of appetizers that I got that had hummus and pita bread that was delicious. It was delicious pita bread. And some other kind of bread that I don't remember what it was called, but it had like sesame seeds on it and really good homemade falafels. And baba ganoush, which is a eggplant dip, which I've never had before, which I really liked. Well, not as much as I like hummus. I like hummus more. But and afterwards I went to a bookstore, and then on the way home I realized while I was looking at my schedule that I didn't work today. I actually thought was going to be working today, and I'd forgotten my schedule. So when I was double checking it to see if someone else would be in, I realized, much to my surprise, much to my delight, an hour before I had to go to work, that I didn't have to go to work. So I got to go home. I stopped by the library on the way home and grabbed some things that I hadn't been able to grab yet. And yeah, I did some reading today. Not as much as I wanted to, but also quite a bit. Well, not quite, only three things, but still enough to talk about in a video, particularly alongside talking about what I got from the bookstore. This is going to be a fun bind up video where I'm going to talk about my four book haul from the book rack here in, well, not here, but over in Peoria. That's like the main city in this area. And free things that I've read today. So I'll just jump right in. I've got four books here that I bought. All of them were science fiction, um, which was kind of bleeding over into the other part of the store because there was a room set aside for science fiction and fantasy, but then there was also more science fiction and fantasy underneath the counter uh, at the front of the store. So, but I got the Mask of Loki. I couldn't remember if it's the Mask or the Mark of Loki by Robert Zelazny. I have not read Robert Zelazny yet. He was one of the writers I was supposed to read for New Worlds November out of the Science Fiction Hall of Fame volume. Oh, what was the story called? I don't remember. I don't remember. I know it's a really famous one, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. But I've been wanting to read Zelazny, particularly for the mythological influences in his story. I know he does that in there's one about the Hindu myths, and it's slipping my mind. I think my brain might be more tired than my body is feeling because it's like a really well known science fiction classic. But I picked this one up because I really like Norse mythology, and again, just the general blending of science fiction with myth and with religion is an idea I love. Even though I read this is not a very well received The Last New Book. It's not his best work apparently. But I'm fine with that. I got two Arthur C. Clarke's in these old Del Rey Classics editions. Those are Songs of Distant Earth, which I know is one of Scott's favorites from Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke. So let me just read the back of this for you. Just a few islands in a planet-wide ocean, Thalassa was a veritable paradise, home to one of the small colonies founded centuries before by robot mother ships, when the sun had gone nova and mankind had fled Earth. Mesmerized by the beauty of Thalassa and overwhelmed by its vast resources, the colonists lived an idyllic existence, unaware of the monumental evolutionary events slowly taking place beneath their seas. Then the Magellan arrived in orbit, carrying 1 million refugees from the last mad days on Earth, and suddenly uncertainty and change had come to the placid paradise that was Thalassa. So very cool. And then I've also got Imperial Earth. 2027, 2020, 2276, there we go. Welcome to Earth for America's quincentennial. The time of troubles is over, war and poverty are dead, and Duncan Mackenzie, benign ruler of the distant world of Titan, has returned to the planet of his forefathers to solve a mystery and create a son, a clone, an exact replica of himself. Now, we've been having some buddy reads. Well, we're starting. Well, actually, no, we've been having some buddy reads because we started with New Worlds. I remember reading Childhood End. Me and Stott and Becky and Sean. No, yeah, Stott and Becky and Sean. And then this month we are doing A Full of Moon Dust, which was one of the books I picked up at the library. And that's with Scott and with, I think, Sean thinking about that. And Brandy and me. And then in January, we're doing Rendezvous with Rama, which I am really excited for. Where it's me and Scott, and I think Sean and Brandy, I think, and Gareth. I might be missing someone there. But kind of hoping that will continue, like a Clarke book each month, because I've got. I want to read the Space Odyssey series, and I want to do. I'd love to read Imperial Earth and Songs of Distant Earth relatively soon too. So, it's gonna be fun. We've got our own little separate Voxer group for that. But the final thing I got was one of these amazing SF Masterworks editions. This is actually the first one I've bought. These have been shown off all the time in our little New Worlds November book group. And this is Ringworld, which is, again, big science fiction classic that I've not read yet. And I love the idea of the Ringworld, one that was kind of taken into the more recent pop culture through the Halo games, with the massive Halo devices that were used in the Halo universe as kind of a technology to a super weapon, basically. Now, I don't know how much of that is true to this, but just a similar physical structure. So I think the ring world is actually bigger. I'm pretty sure the ring world is bigger. And also there's a cat alien. And I like cats, and I like aliens, so that's a really nice copy of that. And I'm really happy to have. Okay, and now I'm going to talk about the books I actually read today. So first up, the first book I've actually read for the World Cup readathon, which I have been awful at not doing anything for. Now, to my defense, I did start a little bit late, but I've been waiting for this particular book and its another book that was written by the same author, which I don't have yet. It's the only book I've got on hold, which hasn't arrived yet. But I've been waiting for those like a week, so I was hoping to get the first part of this done a while back. And my country was Tennessee. And I was going to read something long form, but then New World's November took up all my time. And I never really got to it. So I decided to get something short. And I decided on... Well, I was looking around for some collections of, like, myths, Tennessean myths. And I tried to find something, couldn't find it, but I did, through the library loan system and through the library databases, find this. Kind of a children's book of a Tennessean folktale, and it's called, Why the Jackal Won't Speak to the Hedgehog. A Tennessean folktale retold and illustrated by Harold Beerson. And it just has these lovely, lovely illustrations. I do want to show off some of these. Oh. Just absolutely love these illustrations. And yeah, it's about the jackal and the hedgehog who are farmers, and how their friendship kind of breaks down. I particularly like the way the landscapes are designed. And yeah, this is a really charming book. Really charming little story. It's very short, obviously. It's like 20 pages long. I read it in about 10 minutes. Maybe that. This is my favorite part. The jackal, after reasons, has come to the tea shop. And is drinking his tea, his mint tea, and you got the window with the little kind of like tower in the background, and the what are those? It almost looks like a rug against the wall, but I might be wrong about that. But just beautiful, beautiful illustrations. So beautiful, in fact, that even though I don't collect children's books, I'm actually thinking about buying a copy of this. I found one on eBay for like $40, but it was the best offer thing. So maybe in the future, if that's still there or if another one's come up, I will buy this because I really do quite like this little story. Now, I also read something for Cthulhu and Christmas, which is an event that a bunch of us are doing. That was started by, I think, the original progenitor of it was Heather the librarian. I don't really know how many people. It was like she was the original progenitor, and then like other people got on. But I'm taking part in it. Greg at another bibliophile reads is taking part in it. Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. There we go. Big Hard Books and Classics is taking part in it. Ollie at Kerwin Ollie is taking part in it. And MJ at Reading This Life is taking part in it. And Kristen at I think it's Enter the Book. If I'm wrong about that, I will be corrected down below, but I'm pretty sure the channel name is Enter the Book. She's the one who I've not really watched anything by yet. A couple of those are relatively new to me anyways, but I've at least been on their channels and interacted with them a little bit, so my apologies, Kristen, if you're watching this. But I read The Shadow of Time, which is a story that I have not read before, which I really quite liked. It's about a man whose personality switches for like 8 years because a being from the past a great a being of a great race, the great race of Yes, literally mind swaps with him, and he lives in his body for like 8 years, while the main character lives in the body of the alien for those years. And I love the world building in these stories. That's probably my favorite part about Lovecraft. It's not his writing. I'm actually not a fan of Lovecraft's writing, particularly after reading like Outer on Blackwood and Robert E. Howard. Even though I've only read a little bit of those two, I prefer their prose to this substantially. Um, but I do like the world building. I love the ideas of the ancient uh, alien cultures and how they interact and the wars they wage. It's just very, very interesting to me. And I love the little glimpses you get because then you can fill in those glimpses and ask yourself questions about them. Which, as a world builder in my own right, I enjoy doing that. Kind of just building my own worlds, making maps, and creating races, creating cultures. Even if I don't attach it to anything, I just love that. Those little glimpses are like candy to me. It does get a little bit boring at the end for me when he is descending into the this ancient city that he's found in the modern day, the ruins of that ancient city. Because it just goes on and on and on um, about the him going past the citadels and the different hallways and the chambers. And it's like, and repeatedly talking about how cyclopean it is and how all that. I didn't really care that much about that, but so toward that end, it did kind of slow down, at least for me. But maybe some other people might might enjoy that. So, but that's the first thing I read for Cthulhu and Christmas. Probably the next thing. No, I don't know. I'm not sure what the next thing I'm gonna read is. I'm leaning towards Herbert West, the Reanimator, but it also could be The Haunter in the Dark, or I might reread Dagon, or Call of Cthulhu, or Shadow over Innsmouth, or Color Out of Space. I might read Mountains of Madness, or Cool Air, just for a weird, stupid one. Kind of stupid. It's not that stupid, but it's a little stupid. But yeah, enjoying it so far. And the final thing I'm going to show, I read 4 stories out of this. Sean D. Stanfast and I are reading this as a buddy read together. It is Japanese Ghost Stories by Lafcadio O'Hearn. Now, Lafcadio O'Hearn was a Greco-Irish writer in the mid 1800s to the very early 1900s, and he was born in Greece, born as an Irish soldier who married and fathered a child with a Greco woman. And Lafcadio O'Hearn lived for a while in Greece, and then he lived for a while in the USA, and he traveled to the West Indies. He uh, wrote for journalism about the black population in Cincinnati, and about the Creole culture in New Orleans when he lived there, and about the culture in the West Indies. So he had a very keen eye for those kind of cultural aspects. But he lived and wrote some of his most famous stuff while he lived in Japan, because he moved there towards the later third of his life, and became well known for those writings. And he wrote a huge amount. Just in the back of this is kind of a conglomeration of stuff that he wrote in other sources. The books that it mentions Glimpses of Unfamiliar Japan, Out of the East, Reveries and Studies in New Japan, Tokoro, Hints and Echoes of Japanese Inner Life, Gleamings in Buddha Fields, Studies of Hand and Soul in the Far East, Exotics and Retrospective, in Ghostly Japan, which a lot of stories are from that collection, Shadowings, A Japanese Miscellany, Koto, the full title is Koto, Being Japanese Curios with Sundry Cobwebs, Kwaidan, Stories and Studies of Strange Things, and The Romance of the Milky Way. And, a lot of what he wrote was like folkloric elements, so he would, write about the stories, the anecdotal stories, the ghost stories, often, of Japan. Now, these are written in a very strange way, because at least the first 4 stories I have read are written in a mix of what's happening in his own life. So he's traveling and he's interacting with people, or he's just interacting with people in his normal day-to-day life, like not traveling, and he overhears something and it launches into a story, or a person tells him a story. And sometimes the ghostly threads are very, very thin, such as in the third story, which is so far my favorite, although it's also depressing as hell, because the story is called Intolerant Time, and it starts off with this paragraph. China's chief ally in the late war, being deaf and blind, knew nothing, and still knows nothing of treaties or of peace. It followed the returning armies of Japan and invaded the victorious empire, and killed about 30,000 people during the hot season. It is still slaying, and the funeral pyres burn continually. Sometimes the smoke and the odor come wind-blown into my garden down from the hills behind the town, just to remind me that the cost of burning an adult of my own size is 80 sen, about $50 in American money at the present rate of exchange. Now, the late war is referring to the first Sino-Japanese war. And it goes on to talk about what color has done in Japan at this time, during the Meiji era. And it goes on to talk about children. And it says, it costs only 44 sen to burn a child. The son of one of my neighbors was burned a few days ago. The little stones with which he used to play lie there in the sun just as he left them. Curious. This child love of stones. Stones are the toys not only of the children of the poor, but of all children, at one period of existence. No matter how well supplied with other playthings, every Japanese child wants something to play with stones. And it goes on to recount the ghostly stories about moving stones in a river, and whether that is ghostly children playing their stone games on the riverbed. And it goes in further to talk about how the second part of it follows regards a man who he sees going around selling I don't really remember what his trade really was, but he also had a baby that he kept around, and comes to find out his wife had passed, and the mortuary tablet is kept by the baby because it's binding the baby to the spirit of the mother who is still nursing him. So very small glimpse of the ghostly. And even that, it's just what someone has told him. It's not even a ghost story. It's just a story about people where they mention a ghostly thing. And it's very interesting. Now, some of these other stories I do believe are more along the lines of straight up ghost stories. The second story is that I read. It's called A Dream of Summer Day, and it's also not really a ghost story. It's more of a fairy tale-esque thing, where there is a boy who is fishing in a boat, and he meets a spirit woman of sorts, who takes him away to her father's home because he is the Sea King. So it seems very similar to like a fairy-esque entity, to me, at least. And they marry there, and he loves it there, but then he leaves, and she gives him a box, and the box will allow him to return as long as he doesn't open it. But he comes back to his home and finds out that 100 years have passed. And so in despair, he of course opens it, causing him to wither and turn to dust. And this particular story is apparently extremely well known in Japan because it has been passed down folklorically over and over again, adapted and readapted and rewrote. So very interesting, but again, not really ghostly. And this particular conversation is one that Sean and I were having about, and are still probably going to keep having, about what makes a ghost story, what makes a ghost. And one that has been extremely interesting to me because I can just really get into that kind of pedantic nonsense. But it has been fun. The one thing I would prefer for this volume, well, actually maybe two things. If the editor had, first of all, in the introduction, he does a pretty good job of talking about Lafcadio Hearn as an individual and his writing life and his personal life and all that stuff. That's very good. But what he doesn't do, what Paul Murray doesn't do, is he doesn't tell us, first of all, anything about Japanese ghosts or Japanese ghost stories, which I think is weird, because this kind of gives you glimpses of Japanese culture surrounding ghosts and the supernatural and the kami, the spirits. It would have been, I think, a good idea to maybe give us more of that information as far as scholarly consensus is concerned in the opening. And it also would have been good for it to kind of explain where the different sections came from and how they were decided to put into this volume. Because as they come out, they kind of feel just a little bit meshed together, almost. But I am enjoying it. It is, very curious. It is a curiosity, so. But I'm very much enjoying it, so. Lafcadio Hearn, Japanese ghost stories. And that concludes this video where I have rambled for way too long. I hope you enjoyed it, at least somewhat. And I hope you're having a great day. Christmas is almost here, so, do holiday festive shit. Anyways, bye BookTube.